TV will tweet out the live video link. It is time to go to the club.
Friday, the final day of the week. These are the voyages of the program Unsportsmanlike Conduct. Its ongoing mission to explore strange new movies, to seek out new bits and new edifications, to boldly go where no radio program has gone before. Oh, Kent's Movie Club. It's El Kent's Movie Club. El Kent's Movie Club. It's El Kent's Movie Club.
I still wish the outtake version where the cat started howling at the very end when I hit that last note would have picked up the audio of the cat howling because it was so perfect. And I just started laughing. Hello, Kent.
Hey, Kent.
Hello.
Those of you who are not with us today in the video stream, check out the shirt.
Oh, man.
Let's get the close up there on that, Stibbsy. Let's get the one shot here.
Nice.
Oh, look at that. That is got, what do we got? Flamingos?
Just flowers on this one. I've got some others I'll model in the upcoming weeks that are even wilder than this one.
Awesome.
Well, Kent, this week we are reviewing the film Bernie, as I just told the guys, because the wife surprised me with a honeydew event last night. I did not get a chance to see this movie yet. So I'm going to be...
So John's going to leave.
Well, I'll leave when we get to... Because apparently there is a point, kind of a Sixth Sense type...
I mean, it's not like an M. Night Shyamalan twist, but there's definitely something that happens that you are not expecting to happen that is basically the point of the story.
So forgive the spoilers for just a little bit, but when you guys want to get to talk to that, I'll get up and leave. But I do want to hear the conversation because I want to hear more about this. But Stibbs, you picked this, and this is one of your favorite Jack Black films.
Yeah, it's probably that was probably the fourth or fifth time I've seen it. I remember after I saw it for the first time, it was one of those movies that, you know, was kind of an independent. It was probably in theaters. I didn't see it in theaters, and not a lot of friends of mine knew about it. And so after I saw it the first time, I just made like 3 or 4 people watch it with me. So you guys got to see this. And I'd mentioned when I brought up the movie last week that it might be my favorite Jack Black role, and I think after seeing it again, it's definitely my favorite Jack Black role. It's the perfect spot for him to showcase basically all of his talents. He gets to sing in it. He's funny. It's a hilarious movie for, you know, I mean, it's funny movie throughout, but especially the first 40 minutes or so are just hilarious. He gets serious. I think it's his best role that I've ever seen him in.
Yeah, I agree. You know, Kent, earlier today, and John, Stibbs and I were talking, and I said that about I just love the different things that this movie, as Kent's cat crawls on it. I just love the things that this movie allows for him to do, because he plays some funny parts, he has some serious parts. He's very talented, obviously, with singing, of course, you know, with the band Tenacious D, you know that. So I thought that this was a really good role for him, because sometimes, Ken, I don't know how you feel about Jack Black. I really like him, but sometimes he's in roles that I'm like, I'm not really in on this role. This was one that I really enjoyed, though.
I think what he does is he'll take Jumanji and make a lot of money, and then take a smaller picture like this. And the connection here, the reason... He, if you recall, he starred in School of Rock, which was directed by Richard Linklater, who is the director of this picture, who also directed Matthew McConaughey in Dazed and Confused and the Newton Boys. And a lot of these actors that are in this movie have been in other McConaughey movies that were filmed in Austin, or Linklater movies that were filmed in Austin. I've met him a couple times. I actually had dinner with Linklater once, and he's one of my very favorite directors. And I think because he cast essentially Jack Black in this part that he knew would be perfect for Jack Black, right? And Jack Black's willing to do it, even though it's not a big, blown up movie, because it's Linklater, and he can, and it's a really interesting picture.
Kent, why do you think Linklater, because he's made some movies that are considered either like classics or cult classics or something like that. Sometimes it seems like his movies don't get the type of pub when they come out like any of his contemporaries do, if that makes sense. Why do you think that that's the case? Two things. One, he works a lot with smaller companies, and he makes pretty idiosyncratic films.
Sure.
His really good ones are like Before Sunset and Before Sunrise.
Mm-hmm.
Those two are really good films, but how are you going to market that to a mass audience? They're just too odd, because they're romances, but they're not a standard like relationship movie, right? And like Waking Life and A Perfect what's the other one? The ones he did with the animation that looks like it's drawn, Scanner Darkly.
Scanner
Darkly.
No, I never saw that one.
Scanner Darkly, I have.
No.
Yeah.
Well, he had one called Waking Life, and basically films the movie, and then there's an animation process that goes on top of it, so it makes it look like you're basically watching a comic book, for lack of a better way to put it. Very unique style, but not going to sell to a wide audience like School of Rock.
Mm-hmm.
And I think actually Dazed and Confused was kind of an accident, although I do still have the t-shirt for it. So they did do some promotion of it.
Did you have anything, John, that you wanted to ask about it?
Maybe what we should do real quick is like a brief synopsis of what this is for those who have not seen it yet, just kind of an idea of what the plot is.
Kent, you're better at not spoiling things and discussing them than Stibbs and I are, because you do this every week when things are normal. How would you describe this movie?
Okay, how you would describe this is one of the most. I really hesitate to use the word unique, but this is kind of a unique film because it's not a mockumentary like Spinal Tap or Waiting for Guffman, but it has some sort of fake documentary elements, but it's based on a true story. So it's played way more comedically than the true story probably happened. So it's all those elements going together. And what it is a story of a funeral director in a small town in Texas called Carthage, Texas, who basically befriends all the widows, the old widows in town, who, when shortly after their husbands die, and he becomes involved with this wealthy, very cold, nobody likes her woman who is played by Shirley MacLaine. And then it turns into I wouldn't call it a crime movie, but there is something that happens that I'm not going to give away, which brings in your district attorney, who is played by
McConaughey.
Matthew McConaughey.
Played perfectly by Matthew McConaughey.
Version of it. The movie itself was written by Linklater and the guy who wrote the article about this guy for Texas Monthly in like 2008 or something, and this movie came out in 2011. And subsequently, the writer has written another article about what happened after the movie and etc., and trying to come up with whether he thinks this guy, the main character, is really a good guy or a total con man. And he can't decide. Still, in real life.
Wow.
And the picture, you can't really tell from the picture either.
All right, so you guys need to go spoiler.
Yeah,
on me
all right.
here?
So John's going to leave now for a few minutes.
I'll be back shortly.
All right,
Bobby.
cool. We'll
Bye.
bring him back in like 5 minutes when we announce what next week's movie is going to be. So, Ken, as I wait for John to walk out of the studio now so I can actually bring up something.
2, 1.
And he's gone. All right, so
and he's gone.
as now we spoiler. I thought this movie was absolutely awesome. I had no idea what to expect going in, so I certainly didn't know the true story. But the thing, Ken, that you just brought up about the writer, and you said this was the Texas Monthly writer, or was it Linklater who said that? Okay,
both together. They wrote the screenplay together,
so that he still doesn't know, in that moment exactly what happened, because when he killed her. Like I thought that Jack Black played that moment absolutely perfectly, because you can see everything, all the gears turning at the same time of, I cannot believe I just did this. Now what in the world am I going to do? And so the fact then that, he just lives his life and he's essentially just lying about her, oh, she's sick. Oh, this and that happens.
For 9 months.
For 9 months. I started thinking, like, I cannot imagine how that would go. But I can see that. I can still see the quandary of, I don't know exactly what is up with this guy. And I think that says a lot about Jack Black's performance overall.
Absolutely. His performance and the writing. And McConaughey won a Golden Globe for his performance. This is a really good McConaughey, because he can be play all the McConaughey quirks, but it's a small enough role that he doesn't overwhelm the movie with it.
Yeah.
So two interesting things to me: they really don't develop the character of the woman, right? The Shirley MacLaine character, because it's not important.
Yeah,
it's really not important.
Oh yeah, all you need to know is she was a huge bitch.
Yeah,
and they had a lot of money.
Their way of bringing that character to light, which I was going to get to, was just by the fake interviews with the townspeople.
Those were so good.
Which I remember the first time I saw it, even after for a while, I thought they were actually townspeople, because in the credits,
you know what? You're right. Some of them are.
Yeah.
Some of them are actors, and some of them are real people from that town.
Wow.
And if you watch the credits, they don't say the name, and that they just give the name of the actual person, because even the ones who are actors were just like extras who showed up. And I remember reading an article about Linklater saying, like, I don't want you if you're not from East Texas.
Oh,
because you have to have the accent, you have to have the folksiness, you have to have all the little sayings.
And the old guy, real fast, the old guy, one of the that spoke, wasn't he the dude who did the commercials about Ted Cruz a couple of years ago on Last Week Tonight? I'm pretty sure. Okay,
yes,
the guy was like, Ted, come on, Ted.
Yeah,
that guy was awesome when he was like, "There's this part of the state and this part of the state," and nobody really knows what's on the Panhandle.
Yep. And then he's moved along.
Just kept going.
And I think the woman who visits him in prison at the end is an actual actor.
Okay,
and I think most of the rest of them are the townspeople from Carthage, and stunningly to me, they let him film part of it there. You would think they wouldn't want to have anything to do with it.
Seriously,
he shot it there, and then in a small towns around Austin. There's a couple scenes that I recognize from the town of Lockhart, which if you ever go to Austin, get in your car, drive 30 miles to Lockhart, and get barbecue. It's the home of the real Texas barbecue. So I go to Lockhart every time I go to Texas. So I was like, well, that's Lockhart.
Yeah, watching it again, it's a damn near perfect movie.
It's awesome.
Like the roles played were perfect. Everything was they're down to the little, like, for me seeing it for the fifth time, there were so many little things that didn't even pop up that I didn't remember. Some that I did remember. One specifically is towards the beginning, when one of his first funerals, as him being the assistant funeral director, has a guy up there speaking, and then it's just one dude that spoke at this guy's funeral, and then no one else gets up there, and he kind of panics because he feels bad.
He goes
and so that moment where he feels bad and he does that weird little trot from outside,
and you see him,
and his hair is flopping. That it was the hair flop that I just lost it. And I remember as soon as he started running, I was like, "Oh my god, his hair!" I remember his hair,
dude, and his outfits, the way he wears his pants,
everything was just perfect down to the T. And it's based off a true story, which is, they're lucky that this crazy story kind of fell into their laps and they were able to write around it.
Yeah.
But it's a damn near perfect movie. I would watch it again tonight.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. It makes you think. Like you said, Kent, I love the idea of the kind of open-endedness of not knowing if you should feel bad for him or if he's really just a truly awful guy, because the movie gives you no context as to what he was before he got to Carthage. He might just be going town to town
and doing this,
just killing random old rich ladies. There's no way to know. It's fascinating.
And even weirder is what happened afterwards. This movie got him, a lawyer watched the movie and said, maybe he got robbed at the trial, right? So she got him a retrial. He got released from prison and lived in Linklater's guest house while he was out of jail.
What?
Yep. Lived in Linklater's guest house, went back, had another trial. Of course, he was found guilty, but he didn't get the life without parole or whatever. And so he could get out of prison in 2029 now.
Wow. I was just going to say,
Crazy.
I looked it up on his Wikipedia page that, yeah, he is eligible in 2029.
And like most true stories, I love at the end where you see the real pictures of them together, and then the little
Jack
story
Black talking to him. What a cool little moment.
So
Yeah.
you don't even hear it, but to see him just soaking up everything,
Yeah.
and him talking about how like still to this day in prison he makes he knits like all these little scarves and whatever else for all the widows at the. He's a fascinating character in real life and the character itself.
And when you see them together, Jack Black doesn't look all that much different than the guy, right?
Not at all.
It's a pretty good impersonation, especially when he had the mustache.
Yep.
Yeah, that mustache. I wrote one other thing down, and then we can bring John back in. This was just one of the random jokes early on when there was that conversation between the old ladies about Jesus turning water into wine, and if it's technically wine, it didn't ferment enough. I emailed myself because that part absolutely slayed me. Very, very.
There were some great little one-liners and folksy quotes from some of those townspeople just in the interviews.
They were
just
great.
So funny. There was another one about Jesus that same lady you're talking about, Kent, who visits him, said that I'm going to have to go look up because now it's going to piss me off.
And one of the women in that conversation is also an actress who was in, I think she's in I'm pretty sure she was in Slacker. Have you guys ever watched Slacker?
I have not, no.
That is Linklater's first actual movie, and he just went around and made up this movie about these weird people that live in Austin. And you go from one to the other, and there's no real plot to it, but it's fascinating and funny and weird and sort of pseudo documentary. And it's another one where you don't know if what's true and what's made up.
Yeah,
awesome.
And I'd recommend that. And then he made Dazed and Confused, which is probably the best high school teenage movie about the 70s that I've had. As somebody who was a high school teenager in the 70s, that was it right there.
Yeah,
that's a great movie.
It's a classic. It absolutely is. All right, so do we need to get John? I don't know if John can even hear us.
He was looking at me right here. John!
All right, so
so the little joke was when McConaughey was making fun of him about they were interviewing McConaughey when you kind of first meet him, and he's talking about how he's like, he's light in his loafers and he wears sandals with shorts and all this stuff. And then they go to that old lady and she's like, Jesus wore sandals. Jesus walked around with 12 apostles. None of them were married. I'm pretty sure that Peter didn't have a why is no one ever asking whether Jesus is gay? It's phenomenal.
So that's the movie that you will get to join us in there, John.
Geez, what did you guys do? Break down Gone with the Wind? I mean, come on.
All right, Kent. So I teased this yesterday, and we actually had 2 listeners over the last 24 hours guess what it was. And so I'm going to tell you the year and how long it is, and maybe you'll be able to figure it out too. It's a 1979 movie, and it's 2.5 hours long.
79?
Mm-hmm.
No guess.
Apocalypse Now.
Oh my.
Yeah, I've never watched it. I've been telling the guys, I've been reading a book about Nixon. And so obviously Vietnam War is it comes up in that like every other page. So I've had the Vietnam War on the brain lately. I've never watched Apocalypse Now. It's available on HBO Go.
And it was the very first movie I ever reviewed.
Oh, really?
No kidding.
Yep. The very first one.
Do you have the review still?
Oh God, no.
Who was it for?
I worked at the Grand Island paper briefly, and it was in Grand Island.
It is my week's mission to go find that review for next week.
Any listener out there who has contacts in Grand Island with that paper, if you can find Kent's original Apocalypse Now review, that would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
And that would be from like September, October, whenever it came out in 79. It was right after I started working there.
This Marlon Brando might have a future in acting. Well,
And also, I've interviewed Martin Sheen, who is the star of the.
Yes.
Oh, awesome.
Picture, so
Yeah, I have not seen this since, gosh, it was either late high school or early college. So
it's been a while.
It's been a while since I've seen it. So, and I wasn't a huge fan of it the first time. So I'll be curious to see,
How you feel about it now?
just because it's, I mean, it's obviously a Vietnam War film, but it's, I didn't see it the same way as Full Metal Jacket or Platoon. At least to me, it was more of a.
Is it more of a thinking man's war
I want to
movie?
say it's like more of a psychological.
yeah. Well,
Film.
we can talk about it, but it's actually based off of a Joseph Conrad novel called Heart of Darkness that is pre-Vietnam. So it's more. There's some of that, and and there's a lot of craziness in this movie from literally Brando's character to like Robert Duvall, who plays this colonel of a helicopter division, and he makes them land in a place. I'm not going to give that away.
All right, yeah, don't spoil it.
But this is one of the great lines of the movie that doesn't give anything away. There's a bombing run, and he says, "I love the smell of napalm in the morning."
Yep.
Like victory.
Yeah, that's one of the more quoted lines of that film. So we'll look forward to Apocalypse Now next week.
Yeah, it's available on HBO Go or HBO On Demand. Any
HBO Max, HBO Now.
They have 100 HBOs now.
HBO.
It's available out there.
You can find it. Well, can't we
go to your
appreciate
Blockbuster and rent it?
There you go.
Yeah, go to Blockbuster. That's exact. In fact, that's how I saw it the first time. I rented it at either a Blockbuster.
I got the Betamax.
What was the other one? What was the other local place around here?
Hollywood Video?
No,
that was the one that.
There was. What was that Lincoln? There was a Lincoln.
I keep
video company. I can't remember what it was.
Showbiz keeps showing up in my head, but it's not Showbiz.
It wasn't Family Video, is it?
No,
that's the one that's still around.
It was the hilarious part is it was a family-owned, like pretty prominent family in Lincoln owned it, and they were renting the porn under the counter.
Yeah.
When that came out, they got like publicly embarrassed for being pornographer.
My gosh, that's awesome.
No wonder John frequented it.
See, kids, back in the day, you used to have to go rent your porn.
Yeah, sounds like horrible times.
Yeah, or you just found it randomly laying in an abandoned bush somewhere. Oh, look, hey, where'd this magazine come from? All right, Kent, we'll talk to you next week. Thanks for joining us.
Than's Kent.
Sounds good. See you next week.
He is Kent Wolgamott, Hawaiian shirt and hat and all.
Captain Video.
Captain Video.
That's what Mike says. Captain Video
could have been, but there was another. It was a smaller chain, but like Blockbuster that we rented a lot of our films from back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so next week, Apocalypse Now.
Indeed. There's some sports news that we need to discuss when we return.
Well, good. I'm excited.
You're not gonna like it once I tell it to you. It's not baseball related though, John. So it's not that at least.
Great.
Yeah.
Hey, this segment has been brought to you by Bish's RV. No,
you?
not my RV. Bish's RV.
Oh, okay.
Another great local business and friend of 1620 The Zone.
Zone, taste of our takes. Severe and Benning in the morning.
State Senator Justin Wayne, who you heard just now, his voice representing the Skurlock family following the shooting death of James Skurlock, joining us.
That isn't something that